चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादे पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the morning Bhaktyaloka series. We have been discussing Prayas. Let's once again recite this very important verse from the Updeshamrit text too. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyam cha shadbhir bhaktir vinashyati. So we have been discussing the second article, that is prayas, over endeavoring for mundane things which are difficult to obtain. And as I mentioned, this is the entire summary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's article on prayas. There is Bhoga prayas, Dhyana prayas, Karma prayas, Ashtanga Yoga prayas, Vairagya prayas. These are all useless. They are pratikul to bhakti. A little bit bhakti prayas is required for cultivation of pure devotional service, and one has to give up pride. This is to be done. So, yesterday we discussed Dhyan Prayas. We discussed quite in detail Dhyan Prayas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his article mentions, very profoundly that if one doesn't give up prayas, then devotion will never arise. And then he defines devotion as full surrender and subordination to the lotus feet of the Lord. And this is the natural, inherent occupation, the inherent occupation of the soul. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that in this inherent occupation, there is no need of prayas. Just like the mother who has natural love for the child, all her endeavors of waking up the child, feeding the child, in that she doesn't feel that there is, it's natural for the mother, some things like that. And then he goes on to tell there are two kinds of prayas, jnana prayas, karma prayas. Jnana prayas is, merging, sahibja liberation. And then he says this is hostile, and he quotes Manduk Upanishads, he quotes from the Bhagavatam, Jnane Prayasa, and then Shriya Shrutim. And this full philosophy of monism, it does not originate in the absolute truth. It's a demonic provision, he says, very heavy statement. So there is Atma Gyan, then there is Ishwar Gyan. Ishwar is the all-pervading spirit. And then ultimately there is merging, ekatvam. So this is a demonic provision, he says. And then he mentions that how there is a glorification of the Lord in one's relationship. And this is this gyan is anukul to bhakti. Bhakti sambandit gyan, as I know, Vasudevya Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, Janeti Ashu Vairagyam, Jnanam cha yad ahetukam. Jnanam, that gyan which is related to bhakti is ahetukam. Whereas the gyan of the Gyanis has a hetu that they want to merge in the impersonal Brahman. But this kind of gyan is natural, pure, and spontaneous, and there is no need of prayas. And that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So, this kind of cultivation is the constitutional duty. And in the conditioned state, while performing sadhana, there is still some prayas required. There is still some endeavor required, but that prayas is different from karma prayas or jnana prayas. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes this remarkable statement that if one takes shelter of the holy name with respect, then within a short time, he says, avidya is destroyed. And Updeshamrit text 7 speaks about it. And then if one endeavors for Gyan Prahas, he has to suffer for more. And then if Gyan Prayas is renounced in the association of devotees, then it's a devotional endeavor. And then he quotes these famous verses from 12.2 to 12.5, Kleshvadhikarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam. So that's how we completed our discussion on Gyan Prayas. So now let's come to Karma Prayas. Karma Prayas is very important for us to understand because that's where there is a subtle distinction between uh, Karma Prayas and Bhakti Prayas because both look very similar externally. In Karma Prayas, there is also no benefit. In the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Dharma Swanishtita Pumsam Vishvaksena Katasuyah Nodpadayat Yati Ratim Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. The occupational duties a man performs. Dharma Swanishtita Pumsa. So this dharma here is uh, conditional activities. Conditional activities based on one's swabhava, the subtle body. But dharma in the form of hearing and chanting, that's not the occupational duties, that is the constitutional duties. They have to do with the soul directly. But here we are speaking about the swabhava. So the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position, that is according to his own varna, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishnava, Vaishya, Shudra. So these are designations of the body. But I am Krishna, and to serve Krishna is the natural identity of the soul. So, according to his own position, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Vishwasena katasuya nodpadayait yadi ratim. So, if you are situated in the Varnashram and you are doing your swadharma based on your swabhava, there is your swabhava, and then there is a swakarma, which is the occupational duties, and that's your and situated like this, you don't hear from the sadhus Krishna Katha and develop attraction to Krishna Katha because that's what the purpose of the Varnashram is. that you situate according to your Varna and Ashram and hear Krishna Katha, and ultimately Varnashram then becomes a vehicle to take up to pure devotional service. In fact, it is the best vehicle to take up to pure devotional service. But if you don't develop that Katha Ratim, Yadi Ratim, then all your performance of Varnashram duties is Shama Eva Hi Kevalam. So here Sut Goswami is very emphatic. He says Eva Hi Kevalam. Eva means certainly. He means, without any doubt, or again with certainty. And Kevalam means only it is Shama. As it was mentioned in even the verse of Brahmaji. Where is it? Yeah, Shreya Shrutim, Ta Tesham aso Kalesha eva Shishyate. Klesha, Shama. So Shama eva hi Kevalam. Shama eva hi. So three times it is emphasized. Eva, he, and Kevalam. Therefore, karma prayas is contrary to devotional principles in the same way as jnana prayas. Now, very important, please hear very attentively. The conclusion is that karma prayas and gyan prayas are very detrimental. They are very detrimental. But a devotee who desires to properly pass his life still accepts his duties according to Varnashram, as those duties are favorable to devotional service and are counted as part of devotional service. So please note now here, see, as long as one is conditioned and one has not transcended the three modes, that means one is not on the transcendental platform, uh, one is influenced by the three modes, and there is the nature, conditioned nature. So the conditioned nature has to be doubted by doing conditional duties. At the same time, he does those duties in a way that is favorable to devotional service. Now, I'll give you some example. Somebody is a Vaishnava nature, and being a Vaishnava nature, he is attracted to, doing agricultural work. Now, actually, if you see, he need not do anything. Being situated in a village life, he can morning to evening sit and chant, hear Harikatha. But he has not developed, he's not on the transcendental platform where Mahatma Anasu Mampartha Daivim Prakriti Mashrita Bhajanti Ananya Manaso. He's not on that platform. So he does his conditional activities in a way that is favorable for him to more hear morning and evening Krishna Katha and chant the holy names. So, in one sense, his conditional activities are favorable for his cultivation of constitutional activities. So, he is practicing bhakti, but it is not Shuddha bhakti. Please remember, it is part of mixed devotion. And as he transcends the three modes and comes to the transcendental platform, then he is qualified to practice Shuddha bhakti. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labate para. Para bhakti can begin from there when he is on the transcendental Brahmabhuta platform. So, although karma prayas is detrimental, but for a devotee, he can still accept the duties according to Varnashram, and those duties are favorable to devotional service and are counted as part of devotional service. All these activities are no longer called karma. There is there's a bhakti element added to it in those activities. So that's why it takes a different form. Okay. Now, before I go further into the discussion of Bhaktyaloka, I am trying to introduce these terms Sanishta, Parinishta, and Nirapeksha because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to speak about it in his article. So that's why I'm introducing these terms. This is not part of Bhaktyaloka, but I have added this additional uh, slides to understand these terminologies because that will help us to understand the article of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Now, this I have taken it from Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan's a commentary on the Gita called as the Gita Bhushan because there he introduces these terms Sanishta, Parinishta, and Nirapeksha. Okay, this is from his introduction. One who has faith in this scripture, that is Bhagavad Gita, who is steady in following the path of Dharma and has conquered the senses, is qualified for this scripture, Adhikar. So, for every scriptures to study, we need Adhikar. To study the karma shastras, dharma shastras, one has to practice varnashram. That is the adhikar. To practice jnana yoga, one should be, a sthita pragya. Then he is having adhikar to practice the path of jnana yoga and uh, study the jnana shastras. So here, what is the adhikar for the scripture? He study in following the path of dharma and has conquered the senses. There are three types of qualified persons. The first, called Sanishta, performs his duties of Varna as a form of worship of Hari with desire to see Swargaloka. So here, a Sanishta is one who is performing his Varnashram duties and is also worshipping the Lord. So this is the Nishkama Karma Yogi, which is the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, he's here Sakama because he has a desire to see Swargaloka, but his that desire is, Baldev Devushan explains. Note, the Sanishta devotee performs Nishkama Karma Yoga, followed by Gyan and Ashtanga Yoga, and finally realizes the Lord. Therefore, his desire to see Swargaloka would seem to be for curiosity, not to enjoy those performing Sakama Karma desires. So the Sakama Karma are the Karma Kandis who perform yagyas in order to attain Swarga. Kamatma Swarga Para Janma Karma Phala Pradhan Kriya Visheshu Bahulam Bhog Aishwarya. You know, they are attracted to Bhoga and Aishwarya. That is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 2.42 and 43. I'll just open up that verse so that we're clear about it. So 2.42 and 43 are speaking about the karma kandis. Kamatma Swarga Parad. They have a deep desire to attain Swarga. Janma Karma Phala Pradhan. Kriya Vishesha Bhavalam. Bhoga Aishwarya Gatim. Their Gati is what? Bhoga Aishwarya. They want to enjoy and attain opulence. So these are the karma kandis. But the Sanishta is not a karma kandi. They are Nishkama Karma Yogis. Nishkama refers to they perform Karma Yoga without the desire. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So that's where the discussion in 2.47 begins. So the chapters 1 to 6 of the Bhagavad Gita, uh, Baldev Vidyabhushan says they are Sanishta devotees. That means they perform Karma Yoga and they also worship the Lord. So there is the bhakti element, but the bhakti element is not pradhan. The karma element, that's why they are called as karma yogis, nishkama karma yogis, because karma is pradhan. According to Varnashram, they perform the karma. The second type, called Parinishtita, follows his prescribed duties to set an example for others, at the same time engages in bhakti to the Lord. So the Parinishtita engages in bhakti to the Lord, but he also performs his prescribed duties because he's not attached to performing his prescribed duties. He wants to just set an example to others, those who are not on that platform, so that they can also follow slowly and come to the practice of engaging only in bhakti. So his pradhan activity is engaging in bhakti. His secondary activities, performs of varnashram duty, is not attached to it, nor is he impelled to do it, but he just does it to set an example for others. These two types also follow the rules of their particular ashram. So they perform their duties according to the varna and also ashram. The third type, called Nirapeksha, whose heart has been purified by austerities, japa, truthfulness, and other actions, is absorbed only in worshipping Hari, not following Varna duties. So the Nirapeksha is transcendental and is situated on the transcendental platform, and he doesn't care even of performing the Varnashram duties, and he's just performing Ananya Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. That's it. He does not follow the duties of any ashrama. Okay, so this is the terminologies uh, Sanishta, Paranishta, and Nirapeksha. So the Paranishta are performing Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti. Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti is Bhakti is Pradhan. There are secondary activities they perform as a Varnashram. And the Nirapeksha are performing Ananya Bhakti because they are only performing devotion and they are not performing any other activities at all. So this is the terminology Sanishta, Parinishta, and Nirapeksha. Now, before we go again back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's article, I want to know, do you have any doubts, any clarifications? I hope you're clear with these terms. Sanishta, Parinishta, and Nirapeksha. Okay, fine. Now we are going back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's article here. He had mentioned, right, that but a devotee desires to properly pass his life, still accepts his duties according to Varnashram, as those duties are favorable to devotional service and counted as part of devotional service. All these activities are no longer karma. So we continue the discussion from there. In these activities, the Sanishta devotees, devotees addicted to their own line of devotion, bring karma and its results within the realm of devotional service. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur has introduced, the Sanishta devotees, and that's why we, went to the definition of who is a Sanishta. The Sanishta is he's attached to performing his Varnashram duties. He identifies himself based on the Varna, and he's also worshipping Hari. So he's doing karma, and he's doing that karma as an offering to the Lord, Arpanam, Karma Arpanam. So he brings bhakti element into his karma. So that is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying. He is addicted to his own line of devotion. That means he is addicted to his own activities, and he brings karma and its results within the realm of devotional service. So for that, I have quoted this verse. This again quote is not there in the Bhaktyaloka, but I have quoted Sakta karmani advidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvam sata saktash chikirshu loka sangramam. Just as the ignorant work with attachment. So he is addicted to his, Varna duties. O Bharata, the wise, desirous to teach the people, should perform work without attachment. So he's attached to his Varna duties. At the same time, he worships the Lord. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the Paranishtita devotees or devotees fully addicted to devotional service. So here you can see the subtle difference. Please mark this. So this is the difference between the Sanishtita and the Parinishtita. The Sanishtita is addicted to his nature. He's not able to give up his nature. So he engages his nature, he dovetails his nature in the service of Krishna by worshipping, using his nature and worshipping Krishna. But Parinishita is fully addicted to devotional service, performs pious activities that are not contrary to devotional principles, only to attract people. Only to attract people. He is not attached to performing his duties according to Varna and Ashram, but he performs them without attachment, and he performs them just to attract others to more and more devotional activities. So I quoted this. Karmaneva hi samsiddhim asita janakadaya lokasangramam sampashyan kartum arhasi. By prescribed actions as well as hearing. Janaka, Karmaneva hi samsiddhim, and others attained realization of Atma. And just with the consideration of setting example for the others, you should perform work. Krishna is telling Arjuna, Loka sangram evapi sampashan kartum arhasi. Now the point here is this is a very deep verse. Uh, this Bhagavad Gita 3.20, Janak had attained self-realization. That means he was on the transcendental platform. So King Janaka is a Kshatriya, but he is on the transcendental platform now. And he attained this transcendental platform not by performing Nishkam Karma Yoga and then Jnana Yoga and then Ashtanga Yoga and then coming to Bhakti Yoga. He attained this self-realization by hearing Krishna Katha. So he was attached to hearing, and he had attained this, Shuddha Bhakti, and he was on the transcendental platform. But yet he performed his actions of a king. And that is a Kshatriya Dharma. But please remember that although he is acting as a Kshatriya, he is not conditioned by his nature because he is on the transcendental platform. So he acted just to set an example for others. And he performed all his work of a Kshatriya king. But because he's on the transcendental platform, his actions, karma, are not covered. Jnana karmadya anavritam. They are not covering him. Avrit, it is not happening avrit. So his actions also of his kingly duties are pure devotion itself. Now I'll give you some example. Please try to understand this. Now Dhruva Maharaj, went to practice bhakti with the sheer pure motivation to attain a kingdom greater than his great grandfather Brahma. So that is karma mishra bhakti. It is not shuddha bhakti. And he as a Kshatriya, his Kshatriya spirit is boiling, Kshatriya blood. And he performed this Mishra Bhakti and attained the darshan of the Lord, and he got purified and he became a pure devotee. Now, Dhruva was ordered by the Lord to go back to the kingdom and rule the kingdom. No, he had attained pure devotion. So there was no need for him to go back to do kingly duties. But yet he went because it was the order of the Lord. So that is pure devotion. Now he became a king. And as a king, he had to perform a lot of sacrifices, yagyas, so that he can lead the praja towards dharma. So when he was doing the yagya for the heavenly king Indra, he was chanting the mantras Om Indraya Swaha, So, but he was considering this Indra is the limb of Vishnu. So he was offering, in one sense, directly to the limb of Vishnu. So his act itself, externally, it might seem like a karma kanda sacrifice performed for Indra, but internally, because there was no avaran happening, it was actually devotion, direct devotional. There was no avaran, jnana karmadi anavrita. There was no avaran happening. So that is why the Parinishtita is addicted to devotional service and performs pious activities that are not contrary to devotional principles, only to attract people. So that's the point here. The devotees who are nirapeksha or neutral accept activities favorable for devotional service without caring for popular approval. This is Sarvadharman Parityajya. Jnana prayas and its resultant prayers for liberation of merging with the Lord are extremely contrary to devotional principles. If Ashtanga Yoga prayas aims at mystic powers and liberation, then it is also extremely contrary to devotional principles. So, only in one line, Bhaktivinoda Thakur deals with Ashtanga Yoga prayas. Okay, so there is prayas, Gyan prayas, we have discussed, Karma prayas, we have discussed now, Ashtanga Yoga prayas also. These are the other kinds of prayas. Okay, now he comes to what is favorable prayas and what is unfavorable prayas. The rules of devotional practice and the knowledge of the living entity's relationship of simultaneous oneness and difference are most natural and therefore devoid of prayas. So, hearing the Bhakti scriptures, which delineate the simultaneous oneness and difference between the Lord and the living entity, that kind of prayas is not prayas, it's natural. So, it's Bhakti prayas and it is not karma prayas or gyan prayas. This type of activity and knowledge is only accepted as a means. It is a means. If they are accepted as the goal, then they become a source of fault. Now, this is a very deep statement again. That means uh, jnana, in the verse it is there, na? Tat Shraddhadana Munayo, Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, Pashyanti Atmani Atmanam, Bhaktya Shruti Grihita. 1 to 12, Bhagavatam. So, Jnana and Vairagya are not the limbs of bhakti, but in the beginning stages, they are, they are helpful for entering one into bhakti, but ultimately, they are the means, but they are not the end. They are not the goal. If you take them as the end, then there is a source of fault. That's the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making here. I hope you're clearly trying to understand this. You will have to pay a little attention to understand this. So, in the beginning, you know, Gyan and Vairagya are maybe a little bit helpful to enter into Bhakti, but Bhakti is independent. Bhakti is independent of Karma and Gyan or Vairagya. Bhakti is dependent on only Bhakti. So, you should accept them as a means in the beginning, but if you accept them as a goal, then there is a fault. I will explain this further under Niyamagra. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying. So again, when we come to Niyamagra, if you have not understood right now this point, let's go to Niyamagra and then you will understand it. The hard labor for activities like visiting holy places is prayas that is unfavorable for devotional service. Now, this is a point to be very, very important and to be noted. Now, it has become a trend sometimes now to go for a lot of yatras. It is good to go to yatras, but most of the endeavor in the yatra is visiting the holy places there, but not so much focusing on hearing Harikatha. Most of the time in the yatra is spent in visiting the holy places, in traveling, but not hearing. If that is happening, that's not a good sign. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here, the hard labor of activities like visiting holy places is prayas that is unfavorable for devotional service. But then he says, if, however, one goes to the places of Krishna's pastimes with a greedy desire to awaken his ecstatic love for Krishna and to associate with devotees, then this is certainly devotional service, not useless prayers. So you go to Vrindavan, Mayapur, Navdeep, you go there. Why? With the intensity to attain pure love for Krishna. You associate with sadhus there and you hear Krishna Katha. You spend time in hearing Krishna Katha. Then this is certainly devotional service and not useless prayers. But the same thing, you go to Vrindavan or Mayapur, and from morning to evening, you're traveling to one place to another place just to take darshan, and you don't associate with sadhus and you don't hear Harikatha, then it is more like a prayas. So that's why we have to be careful about it. Following the vows of devotional service is not useless prayers. They are all accepted as part of the process of devotional service. They are the angas of bhakti. The prayas of serving the Vaishnavas is not prayas, for greed to associate with one's own peers destroys fault in the form of desires to associate with worldly minded people. So, Sajati Signa, a lot of endeavor to serve the Vaishnavas, when we do, that is not prayas, because we are associating with Vaishnavas, and that destroys the fault of associating with worldly minded people, Janasanga. The prayas for temple worship is a spontaneous manifestation of the heart's emotion. The prayas for activities like Sankirtan is only meant to open one's heart to chanting the Lord's holy name. It is therefore extremely natural. So, deity worship endeavor is not prayas, and Sankirtan is also not prayas. They are all natural devotional activities. So, now we will discuss Vairagya prayas, which is very, very important. But again, up till now, if you have any questions, up till now, what we have discussed, any questions, any clarifications? Yes, Devahuti Kapil Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can you just go to the last slide which you were presenting? I have a question on the last, the 4 point.
This one.
Yeah, the third point. Yes, Prabhuji. The prayasa for serving the Vaishnavas is not a prayasa for greed associated with one's own peers destroys faults in the form of desires to associate with worldly minded people.
Yeah,
Like,
what's the question?
so the prayasa for serving the Vaishnavas is not prayasa. So is that not the serving devotees or serving gurus? Is that not like endeavoring for pure bhakti?
Yeah, when we are endeavoring for, serving the spiritual master, and, we run about, arrange for him a room, arrange for cooking, all that endeavors, what we are doing, that endeavor is not prayas, because ultimately we get the association of the spiritual master. And that association is sadhu sangha, which will, destroy the fault of jana sangha. That's the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making.
But that is not like an endeavor for attaining Shuddha Bhakti. Is that what is understanding, Prabhu?
No, no, no. All that endeavor is for Shuddha Bhakti, because you are
Okay.
getting the association of Shuddha Bhakta. So in one sense, it is endeavor for Shuddha Bhakti.
Then why it is saying it is not prayasa? That is where I am not able to reconcile.
No, no, no. The prayas for serving Vaishnavas
Mhm.
is not prayas. It's actually devotional activity.
Okay, it is on the transcendental platform already.
It's a devotional activity.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, that's the point.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I got it. Yeah.
yeah. Now let's go to Vairagya Prayas. Okay. Now this is very important and very subtle. We need to know there is no need for prayas and renunciation, because when devotion to Krishna arises in the heart, the living entity easily becomes disinterested in everything other than Krishna. And then he quotes this Srimad Bhagavatam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janetashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahetukam. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, one immediately acquires Janeti Ashu, causeless knowledge, Jnanam Cha Yad Ahetukam, and detachment from the world, Vairagyam. Now, I've also put Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's translation on this verse. Bhakti Yoga, dedicated to Lord Krishna, Vasudeva Bhagavati, endowed with special moods, Prayojita, quickly produces Janeti Ashu, detachment, Vairagyam, from material goals and knowledge of the Lord, devoid of the desire for liberation, Jnanam cha yad ahetukam. So here, bhakti means one who has attained bhakti, that is sadhya bhakti, that is bhava bhakti or prema bhakti. So in bhava bhakti, one is endowed with special moves like in dasya, sakya, vatsalya or madhurya. So only when one attains bhava bhakti, one, janeti ashu, very quickly, there is complete attraction for the Lord and there is complete detachment from this world. And one of the symptoms of Bhava Bhakti or the characteristics of Bhava Bhakti is Moksha Laguta Krit. So there is knowledge of the Lord devoid of the desire for liberation. There is no Bhakti Spruha and there is no Mukti Spruha. So my point is that one should practice bhakti, and when once bhakti fructifies, sadhana bhakti becomes sadhya bhakti, kriti sadhyat bhave sadhya, sa sadhana vidha, then naturally there is renunciation. So renunciation is a byproduct of bhakti. But while practicing sadhana bhakti, if one endeavors for being highly renounced, trying to practice renunciation, then there is a fault because there is vairagya prayas being applied. So once, I went to one particular temple, then I asked, how are you doing in your spiritual life? And then suddenly he said, I'm every day getting up very early in the morning and I'm, uh, eating only once a day. So all these activities he was mentioning were more of activities of his vairagya. But he did not mention that when I'm getting every day early in the morning and studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, or I'm chanting 32 rounds or 64 rounds. If he had mentioned like this, then he would be mentioning his devotional activities. But he was more mentioning his activities of renunciation. So then that is Vairagya Prayas. So Vairagya Prayas is very, very subtle. And, you know, it comes naturally when one attains Sadhya Bhakti, that is Bhava Bhakti. So before that, if one is endeavoring too much to renounce, and then it will become Vairagya Prayas. Renunciation is a natural byproduct of attraction to attachment to Krishna. Maya Sakta Manapartha Yogam Yunjan Madashraya. So that's why we have to be a little careful about Vairagya Prayas. So when one gives up Jnana, Karma, and Vairagya Prayas and engages in devotional practice, then the obstacles of Jnana, Karma, Yoga, and Vairagya cannot pull one down. Therefore, it is established in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Pareshanubhava Virakti Ranyatyachaisha Trika Ekakala. Devotion. Now, Bhakti here means Shuddha Bhakti. Because only in Bhava Bhakti there is direct experience of the Supreme Personality Godhead. And then, as I mentioned, Janeti Ashu Vairagyam, there is also complete detachment and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, before one attains this stage of Bhava Bhakti, there is also little experience of the Lord. Anubhav is there. There is little bit detachment from this world. But still there is battle. There is attraction for this world. In the beginning stages, our attraction for the Lord is very little, and attraction to this world is there. Even at the stage of Nishta, Bhanu Swami Maharaj says that there is 50% attraction to Maya, 50% attraction towards Krishna. At the stage of Bhava, there is like 99% attraction towards Krishna, and there's no attraction, practically no attraction to this world. So this is that bhakti. Here, bhakti means Bhava Bhakti, because there is experience of the Lord, Anubhav. There is Vigyan. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata. What that was? Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata. Bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Not able to recollect exactly. Yeah. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. So this is the stage of bhava bhakti, prasanna manaso, because bhagavad bhakti yogata. So here bhakti yoga means again sadhya bhakti, and bhagavad tattva vijnana means para isha anubhav. There is vigyan, there is full realization of the Lord, and that's why mukta sangasya jayate, complete detachment, virakti. So that's the point also being made here. Now, further, when a devotee humbly and without duplicity chants and remembers the holy names of Krishna, then real intelligence easily awakens in this way. I am a spiritual particle, servant of Krishna. Krishna is my eternal Lord. Surrender at Krishna's lotus feet is my eternal nature. This world is like a traveler's rest house, and to be attached to anything of this world will not give me eternal happiness. Like this, a practitioner soon attains all perfection. Such a simple sutra and mantra. I am Kinkar. I Nanda Tanuja Kinkar Patitam Vam Vishame Bhavamudo. I am a servant of Krishna. Kinkar, Kainkar it is called. I am not a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. That is an identity based on our subtle body. Identity based on Atma, Jivera Swarupa Krishna Nityadas. And just like you go into a restaurant and you have something, and then you leave further ahead in your journey. You don't become attached to that restaurant. So this material world is like that, he says. Jnana prayas, karma prayas, yoga prayas, mukti prayas, as well as over endeavoring for material enjoyment, bhoga prayas, worldly achievements, and association with materialist people are all hostile principles for one who has taken shelter of the holy name. By these different forms of prayas, one's devotional service is ruined, very heavy. Shadbir bhaktir vinashati. So that's how, in summary, we have discussed all these things. Okay. Now, within the practice of bhakti prayas, one has to avoid pratishta. So that is what Thakur is now coming in the end. The prayas for attaining pratishta of fame is the lowest of all kinds of prayas. It's the most, endeavoring for stool it is actually. Although it is the lowest, it is unavoidable for many. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very practical. It is the lowest, but many cannot avoid it. Everyone wants fame in this world. And that's why it is called a subtle sex. And that also should be given by the simple process of devotional service. Therefore, Sanatan Goswami has stated in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sarvatagepi Hayaya Sarvanartha Bhuyaschate Kurya Pratishtavishhtaya Yatnam Asparshena Varam Sarvatyaga Ahaye. Even if one is able to give up everything, Sarva Anartha Bhuyasche, the root of all anarthas is what? Pratishta. And this Pratishta is, compared to what? Even if one can give up all material desires, all material desires, the desire for fame is very difficult to give. Sarva anartha bhuyascha. The desire for fame, which is compared to stool, vishta, is the root cause of all anarthas. Therefore, one should carefully avoid touching this stool-like desire for fame. So if one has a desire for fame, it's like, you have a cloth and you have put stool in it and you tie it on your head and you're walking. But although, it is like that, but everyone cannot avoid it. This instruction is extremely serious. A devotee should follow this exclusive duty with special care. A practicing devotee should pass his life in a natural occupation that is favorable to devotional service. If somebody is a Vaishya, then he has to follow that occupation and it should be favorable to devotional service. He should chant and remember the holy names with knowledge of his relationship with the Lord. That means he should chant with Sambandh Gyan. Now I have quoted some additional quotes for this Pratishta. This is from the Vaishnav K of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Dushtama tumi kishera Vaishnava Pratishtar tare nirjanera ghare Tava harinama kevala kaitava. O wicked mind, Dushtaman, what kind of Vaishnava do you think you are? Tumi kishera Vaishnava, Vaishnav K. Your pretentious show of chanting Lord Krishna's holy name, Tava Harinam, in a solitary place, Nirjana Ghare, is only for the sake of attaining the false prestige of worldly reputation. Pratishtaratara. It is nothing but pure hypocrisy. Kevala Kaitav. So in the beginning, a Kanishta, a neophyte, if he goes to a solitary place and tries to build a bhajan kutir and show he is that highly renounced and throughout the day and night he is engaged in chanting, you know, you know, he will not become free from material desires. His material desires are going to increase. And all this he's doing, it's hypocrisy because he wants to show how renounced he is and attract people. It's for Pratishta Asha. And he'll fall deep into the pool of sense gratification. So it is never recommended for neophytes. And it's recommended only for liberated souls. And the liberated souls also don't do this because they want to, set an example in this world and they want others to take up devotion. Then he says, Jadera Pratishta Shukera Vishta Januna ki khata Maya Raveba Kanaka Kamini Divasayamani Bhavya ki kaje Anitya sab. Such materialistic prestige, Jadera Pratishta, is as disgusting as a stool of a hog. Shukera Vishta. So, in the verse quoted, Avishtaya, this is from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur goes further. He says, this is not some stool of any other animal, it is the stool of a hog. Now, the hog eats stool and it produces stool. So, you can imagine what kind of stool it is. Do you not know that? Jano na ki tha? It is only a mere illusion cast by the potency of Maya. Maya Vaibhav. So this is how Maya bewilders. What is the value of contemplating Bhavya ki kaj day and night, Divasayamani, your plans for enjoying wealth and women, Kanaka Kamini, all these things are only temporary. Anitya Esab. So you're not able to continuously remember Krishna because you're not on the Bhava stage. So in the Kanishta stage, if for fame, you show your this kind of vairagya, you're actually meditating on only women and wealth. So this is what uh, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in Vaishnava. In the Manishiksha, which are splendid instructions for the mind, Raghunath Das Goswami says, this is the root of all anarthas. Only when Pratishta Asha is destroyed, then pure devotion awakens. And that's why he says, प्रतिष्ठा आशा दृष्ट्वा स्वपचिरमणि मे हृदि नटेत् कथं साधु प्रेम्णा स्पृशति सुचिरे तन्ननु मनः सदा त्वं सेवस्य प्रबुदयितसामन्तमतुलम् यथा तां निष्कास्य त्वरितम् इह तं वेशयति स. As long as the unchaste drishta, dog-eating woman, Swapacha Ramani, of desire of pratishta, prestige. So Raghunath Das Goswami is going more deeper. He says the desire for prestige is like associating with a woman, but not an ordinary woman, a dog-eating woman. Dance is in my heart. Riddhi me nate. That means you have a desire in the heart for Pratishta. That means you are associating with a dog-eating woman. How can Katam, the chaste and pure Suchi, lady of love for Krishna, Sadhu Prema, how can love for Krishna arise? Touch it. Just like a husband is associating with a prostitute at home, a chaste wife will not enter that house. Similarly, as long as you have the desire for Pratishtha, then pure devotion, who is compared to a chaste lady, will not enter that. Therefore, O mind, Namana, you should always Sada Tvam Sevasya, the incomparable Atula, beloved devotee, commander of Krishna's army, Prabhu Daitya Samantam. So, how to become free from the desire from Pratishtha? You serve the pure devotee. And you see how his conduct is. He has no desire for Pratishtha. You serve him, who immediately yata asa tvaritam throw out the unchaste woman, tam nishkashya, and establishes the pure lady of love, tam veshati, in the heart. So the pure devotee will throw this desire for Pratishtha and establish the pure lady of pure love in the heart. So here also Pratishtha Asha is spoken. Further, now you are continuing. This process of worship without prayas again has two different kinds of applications for householders and for renunciates. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur in every article he brings out this, that this prayas has two applications for householders and for renunciates. Making varnashram favorable to devotional service, the householder should pass his life engaged in devotional service free from prayas. They should earn and save only to easily maintain the family members. If they always remember that worshipping Hari is the only purpose of life, then they will never fall into illusion. In happiness and distress, in good fortune and bad, in waking and sleeping, in every condition, worshipping Hari will quickly be perfected. And the renunciate should not save at all. The grasas can save to maintain their family, but renunciate should not save. He should maintain his body by daily begging alms and thus engage in devotional service. They should not stay in any enterprise, that means any business. By entering into enterprise, he is at fault, a sannyasi. The more he worships the Lord with humility and simplicity, the more he will understand Krishna by his mercy. As stated by Brahma, Tattenu kampan susumkshamano bhunjana evatmakrit vipakam ridvavapober vidadan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadaya bhag. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, Ridva Vapu Vir Vidadan Namaste, words and body, is surely eligible for liberation. Mukti Pade. Here, Mukti Pade means situated in his constituted position as a servant of Krishna, for it has become his rightful claim. Sadaya Bhak. Nothing is achieved by Dhyana Prayas, but one can know Krishna only by his mercy. We can understand Krishna by only his mercy. And that's why he quotes this. Atapi deva padam bhuja dvaya prasadaleshanugrihita evahi Jhanati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chiran vichinvan. My Lord, If one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of the Lord Lotus feet, prasad leshanu grihita evahi, he can understand the greatness of your personality. Janati tattvam bhagwan mahimno. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you. Na channe ekopi, even though they continue to study the Veda for many years. Api chiram vichinman when they speculate, so they cannot understand. So one can know the Lord by only his mercy. If one takes shelter of the holy names with humility, then by the mercy of the Lord, without prayas, all knowledge of the absolute truth that should be known awakens within the heart of the simple devotee. Please mark all these statements. Chanting with the holy name with humility, and then with this, within the heart of the simple devotee. This knowledge is never attained by independent prayas, by karma prayas or jnana prayas. That how he ends this article. Okay, so we have finished this prayas. Any questions, any clarifications on this point which we discussed? Any questions anyone has? I hope you're able to follow the discussion. The subject is quite deep. It requires, quite deliberation. And I recommend that as we are discussing these articles, please do buy this book, Bhaktyaloka. I'll share the link and please do read it. So any questions, any clarifications? Okay, so we'll stop here. Shri Bhaktyaloka ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna.